Right, if you're defending rook and pawn versus rook, by far and away the best way to defend it, if you can, is the Philidor defense. We've done a whole video already on the Philidor defense, but very briefly, what we would do here as the white side is bring our rook back to the third rank. You can see there's a problem with that in this particular case, and there's no way for black to make progress. We can just move our king back and forwards between the d1 and the d2 square. If black delivers a load of checks, there's no way for black to advance their king, which is what they want to do, because we're covering the third rank. The only way that black can eventually try to make progress is by pushing the d-pawn, and as soon as they do, we move our rook back to c8 or c7 probably, or c6 even, and we just deliver a barrage of checks. We just keep checking the black king. It's got nowhere to shelter. It's a very easy defensive technique. So yeah, if you can get the Philidor position, do so. It works against all pawns, and it also works on ranks further up the chessboard. Okay, so if you like, you could do it on the fourth rank, and if that goes wrong, and you mess it up somehow, and I'm not sure how you would, you've got one last chance on the third rank. You could argue that against a rook's pawn or a knight's pawn, first rank defense is just as easy, if not easier, so you've got that. But against central or bishop's pawns, first rank defense does not work, and the Philidor defense would be the best way of doing it. However, you won't always be able to get the Philidor defense, and here's an example of where we can't get the Philidor defense. I mean, our immediate move to the third rank loses our rook and the game, on top of which the black rook is controlling the third rank. So a different defensive technique is needed, and it's going to be, there are 4 drawing moves here. Any of the rook moves upwards, even rook c5 is a drawing move, believe it or not. But why would you not just give yourself lots of space? The drawing technique briefly is we need to hit the d-pawn from behind. All the time black is not defending the d-pawn with their rook, we're going to hit it from behind, and that's going to stop black from making progress. However, it's a very precarious situation, because black would now deliver a check, and there is only, I say there's only one drawing move. There are 2 drawing moves here, although one of them's not one I would play. Not a drawing move, and certainly not a move I would play, is king d1. Okay, king d1 is kind of a natural move. Stick the king, carrying on blocking that pawn. But now we would see king d3. And, alright, we're going to move our king now so that it doesn't get checkmated. But we need to be attacking the d-pawn already. Okay, it's sensible to move our king to the short side. It doesn't actually matter here because both are losing. And then when rook h1 is played, king b2, black can play king e2, king d2, and we can see that the Lucena position excuse me, is going to be reached. So yeah, we can't do that. So when black delivers this check on h2, we need to sort of anticipate the king coming into d3. We'll need a move to attack the d-pawn, so we can't have black coming in and threatening checkmate. Incredibly, king e1 for some reason is also a draw here. There's this thing with the Klingon-Horwitz technique, by the way, where if it's a central pawn, you can move your king to the long side. You can get away with moving your king to the long side in some circumstances, because when you're... So I'm going to say something that might not make any sense, to be honest, but when your rook runs out of checking space, you attack the other rook instead. But don't worry about that. Just move your king to the short side. So that's what we should do. We should play king c1. And the point is yeah, when black comes in, we now no longer need to defend against checkmate. We just come and attack. This is the crucial. We've got to attack that pawn all the time. The black rook is not defending it. Black will now play something like rook h1 probably, rook h1 check, king to b2, and there's various things that black can do here. One thing that, I'm going to play this against Stockfish in a minute, because, you know, if you want to prove that you know how to defend it, then believe me, if you make one mistake against Stockfish, it's very easy to make a mistake in this Klingon-Horwitz defensive technique. If you make one mistake, Stockfish will punish you. That said, Stockfish doesn't try all the tricks. I've played it a couple of times against Stockfish, And it's extremely easy because Stockfish doesn't try all the tricks. One trick that Stockfish should try is to come and X-ray defend the D pawn. Okay, that's an X-ray defense of the D pawn, and then black is threatening King E2, which would then win, or even King E2, which would then win, because we're going to get into the Lucena position. Rook D1 must be met by Rook H8. As soon as the black rook comes in front of its pawn, you make yourself ready to deliver checks from the side. Okay, probably not up there, but that's the idea. Okay. The other thing that could get tried is King E3. Okay, all right, you're attacking my D pawn, so I can't move my king forward, but I can still move it to E3, and this gives white a chance to blunder. Think, check. You just lost the game. Okay, because King D2, attack the D pawn again. The Lucena position is going to get reached, so you can't play check against that. Whenever the king moves aside, you have to follow it in with King C2. Let's go back to the original position. So yeah, this is drawn by Rook C8, and when the check is played, you have to play King C1. Now it's worth knowing, if I just play some silly moves to begin with, that's a losing move there, but black's going to play some silly moves back. It's now white to play. If we'd had the original position with the king on D1 to begin with, it's lost, because the black king's already ready to come into D3. Our rook on C4 is in a silly place. We have to move it up there to try and attack the D pawn, but we've now transposed to one of those losing lines. And we're going to see King D2 I played there before, but King E2 is just as good. Check, King D2, and the Lucena position is going to be reached. If the white king started on C1 in this position, you'd be alright. So let's just play some silly moves. That's a losing move, but black plays a silly move back. Another silly move, losing again, but black plays a silly move. So if this was the starting position, then because when we play Rook C8, black can't come in with a checkmate threat, well, this is now a draw again. Okay, and after King D3, we hit the pawn. So that's the Klingenhorwitz defensive technique. Let's try it against Stockfish, and let's hope Stockfish tries all the tricks. And you know what engines are like. This is a great thing to practice against an engine, because you read the textbooks of all the things you need to do. It seems easy, and then you go and practice it against a computer, and they'll do something that's not in the textbook and make you think about it. And you have to be careful, particularly if the rook starts defending the pawn from the side. Okay, we have to really think about what we're doing there. Is black ready to progress, and do we need to move our rook somewhere else that doesn't hit the pawn? Those sorts of things are going to be needed in a sec. Let's try it then. So I've got it set up against Stockfish. I mean, some of this might be a bit dull, to be honest, because it might just keep repeating things. Rook back, King C1, absolutely forced. King D3 straight away, and yeah, now we have to hit the D pawn. Okay, we have to hit the D pawn there. We'll probably see Rook H1 check and King to B2, and we might see some messing about. Yeah, so lots of messing about, and this is a trick you could try if you were the black side. Actually, that's not just messing about. This is something we need to be aware of. I haven't talked about this. We're now black's now threatening to cut us off. So as soon as the rook goes up, we have to come back to the first rank. Because if Rook C7 check, which Stockfish has played, we have to come this way. Now he's threatening checkmate, we go to the short side. Messing about. Because engines are very good at working out the threefold repetition, we're going to get lots of the same position, but we're going to maybe see this sort of stuff again, but with my rook on d7 in a minute. So that aspect of it's going to be a bit dull, I'm afraid. But you know, you should practice this yourselves and give yourself confidence that you can do it. There you go. There's a bit of messing around with checks down here. This just doesn't achieve anything. Just move our king back and forth. We might see this again in a bit with our rook on d7 or something. And now checkmate's being threatened, so King C1. What I'd really like it to do is come down and check us to B2, and then do that rook d1 x-ray defense of d4, because at that point we have to play rook h8. Nothing's being threatened there, so we just keep our rook on the d pawn. Our king's in a great place. Don't move the king. In fact, I think any king move there would have lost. It would, because king d1 would have been checkmate, and king to the b file would have got our king cut off with rook c7. So we had to play rook d6 there. Well, rook d5 might be drawn, but why bring your king rook closer? I don't even want to investigate whether rook d5 was drawn, because I don't need to. And now rook back to d8. It probably was. There you go, there's a nothing move, rook d7, and now unfortunately we're probably going to see all the same nonsense as before, but it's not threefold repetition because our rook's on d7 instead of d8. Okay, so that's made me think a little bit. What's it up to here? Another way you can do these positions, by the way, is you know it's drawn because you're in the middle of the Klingon-Horwitz technique, and the book's told you it's drawn. So if you get to a particular position where black's just done something unusual, you can actually work out sometimes the correct move by process of elimination. If I do that, I've lost. If I do that, I've lost. It must be a draw because the textbook says so. So the only possible move is this. We can see that king moves there are very silly, and if we don't stay on the d pawn, I don't think this rook to e1 has done anything, so I'm just going to carry on attacking the d pawn. It's when rook e4 hits the board that I have to think a little bit more. Yeah, this is just fine, isn't it? Just carry on hitting the d pawn. Some silly checks going on. It'd be nice to have seen rook d1 there. Come on, play rook d1. Make us at least demonstrate the other side of. There you go. So that's a bit more interesting. King e3. If I play rook e7 check here, I've lost. Okay, the Lucena position will be reached. So I have to play king c2. I have to follow that king in. Okay. And now king back to d1. So always being careful. There you go. Checkmate's being threatened, and I move to the short side. So we're back to where we started, kind of. But at least that's some stuff that's been demonstrated. Black's not threatening anything there, so just carry on hitting the d pawn. Rook c6 check. If our king was on the b file, black would absolutely have been threatening rook c6, but we're not getting cut off there. Checkmate threatened. Go to the short side. Just for completeness, I would like it to at least try the rook d1. I'd like to demonstrate the rook d1. I'm going to play rook h8. What's being threatened there? Nothing. Carry on hitting the d pawn. Check. Go on, rook d1. Let's see it. Rook c6 is being threatened, cutting off our king. Right, this is quite interesting. So I said that as soon as black's defending the d pawn, if the rook was defending it from d1, we have to play rook h7. Okay, ready to deliver a barrage of checks from the side. Now we can see that here, that's actually a very silly idea, because the black king will come to the e file, and the black rook is ready on the f file to stop those checks. If we move our king, if we move it to d1, we're getting checkmated. If we move it elsewhere, the black rook is defending the d pawn, and black will play king d2. That's obviously lost. The Lucena position is going to be reached. So we shouldn't move our king. We've got to move the rook. And if we move the rook away from attacking the d pawn, then black's also got this rook f1 check, king b2, and then king d2. So I'm a little bit nervous about the fact that the black rook is now defending the d pawn, but I've just worked out that I'm in the middle of a drawing technique. I know it's a draw because the textbook says so. I've done nothing wrong. All moves except rook carrying on hitting the d pawn are lost. So I don't even have to think about it. I just carry on hitting the d pawn. It must be a draw. So I get egg on my face and have to re-record. But it seems to have worked. Okay, so you might want to investigate what would happen there if king e3 or king e2, and it must be that we play king c2, so that our king and our rook are defending d3. You might think that black's got some trickery there with pushing the d pawn so that when we take, a check would be delivered, throwing us off the rook, but we can just block the check and we're okay. Right, I think we're back to, that's just a nothing move. Carry on hitting the d pawn. Check, king to d1. We're on move 37 now, so it's got to get bored reasonably soon. And we'll see how this all finishes off. That's back to d1, a bit more messing about. It's a shame it hasn't come down and tried rook d1. Well, there's not a lot to show, though, to be honest. King's in a good place. Everything's in a good place. Just carry on hitting the d pawn. Same again. Go on. Play rook g1 check followed by rook d1. Or rook e1 check followed by rook d1. He's not going to do it. Silly stockfish. Okay, so that's slightly different. What's going on now? You need to think about this. Yeah, see, this is the sort of thing that we do need to think about this. So black's just played king c3, obviously. Pushing the d pawn's not a problem. We're sort of straight into the Philidor setup, where I'm just going to deliver a barrage of checks from behind. I'm thinking of king c1 here. If the black king moves to the b file, I'll come back. Or go to d2. That looks absolutely fine. And if the black king moves to d3, I'll come back. The only thing I should worry about is what happens if the d pawn is pushed straight away. Sorry, not the only thing I should worry about, but something I can worry about. If the d pawn's pushed straight away, I'll come back to d1, and we're in the Philidor setup, where black's not going to be able to avoid the barrage of checks unless they just keep their rook on the c file, which is obviously no use to them. There is one. The other problem with king c1 is, what if black goes to deliver a checkmate? So rook h8 or rook a8, either of those two moves. Then we would need to do a check. That's a problem, actually. No, I don't like that, because if we do a check, we're no longer hitting the d pawn. Oh no, it's okay. Because our king's on c1, we would do a check and then come back and hit the d pawn. So I'm pretty sure that king c1 is fine. And we see a repetition. See, I mean, I think I just demonstrated there that, I haven't got this technique absolutely perfected to the point that I know instantly the move in every single possible thing that black can try. But I still knew enough to work out by process of elimination. I know all the ways in which you can lose it by being careless, and the points at which you've got to be hitting the d pawn. That meant I was able to work out that king c1 was an okay move there. And yeah, I mean, now the d pawn's pushed, so we're into the Philidor setup. You just plonk your pawn behind plonk your king in front of the pawn, and I mean, what does black do here? This is probably going to be incredibly boring now, and we're ready to deliver this this barrage of checks. Although I see the black's blocking on the e file. Let's bring the king forward. That might speed things up a little bit. I might force him down to the second rank. And now there is just no cover. I'm going to keep bringing the king forward. Do I bring the king forward again? Or do I just start delivering the checks now? Either's drawing. But king forward. Let's go king forward. Okay, and now the black king doesn't have cover. We can stop this now. I don't think there's anything left to show. We'll just say check, 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 and just keep checking forever. If the black king comes to get us, we'll put our rook on d8 and nab the d pawn. Oh, that was already threefold repetition. I could have claimed a draw there. Forgot to claim a draw. Made me claim a draw. Unbelievable. Okay. Right, I think we've seen enough of that. So I'll go back to the position here. Let's look at 3 games. They're not that dissimilar, to be honest, to what we were just looking at. So this first one's from 1968. It is black to play. Pause the video and decide what would you play as black. There's only one drawing move in the game. It was played, and against the bishop's pawn, you absolutely have to move to the short side. White is threatening checkmate. We've already got our rook attacking the c pawn as it should be, so we just play king b8. Rook h8 check, rook h8 check, king a7. Rook d8 was played in the game, but we should be aware of rook c8. That's the thing that Stockfish never tried. And as soon as this rook is x-ray defending the c pawn, you move your rook off, ready to deliver a barrage of checks from the side. In the game, rook d8 was played, and in this case, you just carry on hitting the c pawn. Rook c2, king d6, inviting a check. Although in this case, apparently the check would still be all right. Rook d2 check's actually okay in this particular case. I'm not quite sure why. I would. It's probably because this rook's already over here or something. But I would just follow it in, which is what happened in the game. King b7. Yeah, I'm surprised at that. I'm surprised at that check. Believe it or not, black can still draw this, which I'm not going to get sidetracked by. But interesting. Don't do that. Play king b7. Next, this is a game from 2012. It is white to play. Pause the video and decide what would you do.